Okay, well, I finally got all the stuff around to test the pressures on this thing. First we had to get fittings, and then come to find out Dad loaned out our test gauges and stuff for it, so I had to get those back, and I had to make a tool to run it with a drill, so we got all that. This is what I came up with. A few guys that I talked to, and Chris Losey and everybody, they all use radiator hose and just connect it to the drill chuck, and I wanted something a little fancier than that because obviously this is probably not going to be the last time we do this. It would be nice to have some sort of dedicated tool. So I went a little heavier than radiator hose. This is inch and 3/4 hydraulic hose. That just slip fits over the splines perfect. And obviously because it's hydraulic hose, can't use a regular hose clamp, but luckily we had some T-bar clamps that are that were the right size. And then I took a piece of inch and 3/4 round stock and punched a hole in it, and took a 1/2 inch bolt and red Loctited it. Obviously drilled and tapped it in the center, and then red Loctited a bolt in and cut the head off for a stud to get a hold of with a drill chuck, and then cross drilled it and put 2 1/4 bolts in it, so now it's an actual dedicated tool. And the electrical tape's on there to keep the reinforcing wire in the hose from getting to your fingers, so that's just for safety. But that just slides on there like so. Then you run the clamp down, and I already tried this out yesterday. It works pretty slick. So there's that. Obviously I made a loop hose for it. It's just non-reinforced nylon braid hydraulic hose. That way, just 100R3. That way I could make a shorter hose and not have to have a big loop in it for if we use like a 2-wire hose or something. So I already, yesterday, once I got all the stuff made, I'm still waiting on gauges, but I filled it up with oil, ran it, shifted it through all the speeds a few times, and tried to work all the air out of it, because you don't want to be pressure checking it while there's air in it, because it'll get goofy readings. So it shifts good. I'll tell you what, you put it into direct drive, and because when you put it in direct drive, you are spinning everything in there, because your shaft is going, or your power is going straight through the shaft, but you lock up that direct clutch pack, and you are literally turning the entire upper shaft, the counter shaft, everything is all locked together. It's all turning. It takes a lot of oomph to keep all that rotating mass going, plus the drag that you have from the hydraulic oil and the pump and whatnot. So, but shouldn't really have to check it in any particular, should be able to check it, actually I'll probably check it in overdrive, because in overdrive you disconnect the direct clutch pack, you go back through the counter shaft and back up, so you're still turning everything, but it's not all locked together. There's some slipping and stuff going on there. So anyhow, I gotta recheck my oil now that it sat overnight, and hopefully got all the air bubbled out of it. Get my gauges, get my test ports and stuff out. That should be the one I need for the clutch packs. I guess that's everything I need. There should be a smaller gauge in there. I need like a 0 to 100 or 0 to 60 or something like that gauge for checking the lube pressure. But anyway, I'll get my test ports in and get it all set up, and we'll catch you guys here in a minute. It's probably actually going to be a fairly short video today. Okay, so I'm all set up here. Got the drill on, got my gauge on. Now with this, with the early side cover, like what I got on this one, because this is probably... I could look up the serial number, which every 3-speed, the serial number should be stamped right here. This one is serial number 05. Is that a 5 or a 3? That's a 5. 054631. But every 3-speed should have the serial number stamped right here. But anyway, this has got to be, because this is a 68. The 3-speed came out in really, really late 67. The 1950T was the first tractor to be offered with the 3-speed as standard equipment. You could still option it out with a 2-speed or with a straight shaft, but it came standard with a 3-speed. Followed by the 2150 and the 2050 and 68 when they came out. But the T was the first one to get it in late 67 when it came out. So, and there was not that many T's built in 67. Most of them came out in 68 and early 69 before the 55 series came out. And then the last, what was it? I think 50 of them were built as single air cleaner 1950 T's, which personally I prefer the dual air cleaner 1950 T's. That's kind of what makes them stand out. But anyway, so this is a very, very early 3-speed, which is why it has the early style direct drive clutch drum in it. It's got the early style side cover on it. The probably most likely the reason that my Planet carrier was ate up was the early ones were not hardened for some reason. The one that I put in it is a late. You can't even get a non-hardened one to replace it. All the ones made after serial number, I can't remember if it gives a serial number break, because in here it lists all of, you got an entire section on design improvements. And where is it? Direct drive clutch counter planted at carrier was hardened for increased strength to resist cracking, but it doesn't give a serial number. But at some point they hardened that Planet carrier, so the one that's got in it now is a hardened Planet carrier. But anyway, there's a bunch of stuff on this one that got changed pretty quickly between 68 and 70. Because by the time the 55 series came out, the most of the updates should have been done, although I think that the hardened Planet carrier came out later than that yet. But anyway, so with this side cover, unfortunately they only gave you provisions to check the clutch pressure, and you can't check it on the individual clutch. You can only check it in the overall clutch circuit, and you cannot check the lube pressure. Well, you can check the lube pressure on these, but you have to make a way to tee into this line. And that's kind of a pain in the butt, and chances are very good that if you're making clutch pressure, you're making lube pressure, so we're gonna roll with it. But on a later style side cover, you have, there's 2 plugs. There's one here and one here, which would be like here and here roughly. The one rearmost to the 3-speed would be your overdrive clutch circuit pressure, and the one closest to the filter base would be your direct clutch circuit pressure. And then on the side, kind of right up in here, which they changed the entire front of this side cover, like this area right here, this got a bunch of changes done to it. And you have 2 ports right here to check your lube circuit pressure. And then the plug that I'm in right now is this guy, which is the only one that is common on both of them, is your general clutch circuit pressure. And just so you get a general understanding of the operation here, so when you got it in overdrive, this is the valve spool, so that guy right there that your lever's hooked to, when it is all the way out, you pump goes to the front landing, and then goes from there to the overdrive clutch pack, and then it goes through there, and then your oil returns back to tank. So, and also when you're in that position, it will bypass some oil past the regulator valve, and anything that flows past the regulator valve goes into lube circuit. So it would go from there through the oil cooler and then go back into the 3-speed. Then when you shift to direct, you shift the spool out one detent, so now you're in the middle detent. You block off that front landing, you open up the back landing, so now you're going from pump. You still have it's still bypassing through the regulator valve into the lubrication circuit. And then when you're open up that rear landing, now you're going up and into the direct clutch pack, and then that will return back to tank through here. And then when you get to underdrive, you shift the spool all the way in, so now you're in the very first detent. That blocks off the rear landing and the front landing, and then there's this big landing here that is your bypass, so that you your pump goes up into the spool. It's no longer making pressure because it does not have resistance to any of the clutch packs, so it is dumping through that front landing on the spool directly into your lube circuit pressure. The pressure regulator valve is closed because obviously both clutches are open, so there's nothing building pressure to push that regulator spring open. So that path is blocked off, and all of your lube pressure is going through the valve spool and back in, and you have both clutch packs returning back to tank, which is these guys right here. So probably clear as mud, but that's what you got. So like I say, I cannot show you, because of the early style side cover, I cannot show you checking individual clutch packs. All I can show you is the overall clutch circuit pressure. So right now I am in underdrive, so let's see if I can because I'm in underdrive, like you saw in the diagram, it's not pumping oil through the pressure regulator spool, so it's not going to build any pressure in underdrive. It's just doing lube circuit, which technically, if you're plugged into this, if I had a lower pressure gauge, you would probably see a little bit of a parasitic reading because of the pressure that's building going through the lube circuit. But this gauge, being a 1500 psi gauge, really doesn't pick that up. But just to show you here, so now we'll shift one click, and that is direct drive. The drill does not like direct drive. Now, because we're spinning under, it's under speed right now, it's actually reading a little low on the pressure. By all rights, idle speed on these is about 800 to 850 RPM. By all rights, at 850 RPM, you should be building full clutch circuit pressure, because like, you're not always going to be running the tractor wide open. So anything under engine RPM, you still want to be building full clutch circuit pressure, so you're not slipping the clutches. So by all rights, at 800 to 850 RPM, you should be building, I think it's 140, clutch circuit pressure, 140 to 160. So at 800 RPM, as long as everything inside is kosher, by all rights, you should be building at least 140 PSI. The big thing is you don't want to be overpressuring at engine speed, but as long as your pressure regulator and bypass valve are doing their thing, it shouldn't. And at 2400 engine RPM, which is full throttle on the 310s, you're looking at 5.5 GPM output on the pump, and at 2630, which would be full engine RPM on the 2255 or anything with a 3208, because this book covers the 17, 18, 1955 and the 22, so that's why they got that one in there. You're pumping 6 GPM, but pressure does not change for rated input speed. And then lube circuit pressure is 27 to 33. So, but like I say, with this side cover, short of making an adapter to T into this line, can't really check that. So, it's pretty safe to say that we're good. Well, it's obviously shifting into direct because it's building clutch pressure. You can feel the shift. So now we will go into, that should be overdrive. So we're good there. I wish I could set this thing up somewhere so that you could actually, because I can't run the drill, hold the gauge, run the camera, and shift it all at the same time. I wish there was a spot that I could, wonder if I could prop this up right in here maybe. That way you can watch this while I'm shifting it. So you start off and under. And I don't know how well it showed up on the camera, but when you shifted in between direct and over, you should have saw a little instantaneous pressure drop on the gauge. And what that's telling you is that one clutch is releasing and it's diverting oil, and it's building up pressure in the other clutch. And that's what that pressure drop is the switch from one clutch pack to the other, because it takes a split second to divert the oil and fill the other clutch piston. So you want to see that little tiny quick pressure drop, because that tells you that the clutches are working right. So everything here looks like we're doing good, which it was working before. Basically the only thing that we've changed is we put that new pump in it, and that was the big thing I wanted to check, was that pump output was going to be good. And obviously we put that new spring, or put the new pressure spring in it, but that appears to be doing its job. Like I say, with this drill, with no load on it, it's 850, and I'll guarantee you that even in underdrive, when you're just dumping right back to tank and not building any clutch pressure, I'd be willing to bet we're still not getting the full 850 out of it. And I bet that in direct and overdrive, we're probably down around 750 to 700. So we're underspeeding it, so we're not going to see full pressure on that gauge. So, but I'm confident that we're in good shape. So I don't really see anything. Like I say, it shifts good. We're building pressure even at low speed, so at operating speed and operating temperature, I think we're going to be okay. Now, if we're not okay, just for anybody's reference, so to adjust spool pressure, shims may be used behind regulator valve spool spring. So for every shim, and the shims that they provide measure 0.359. So basically for all intents and purposes, every 3 thou a shim, that gives you 5 psi pressure increase. So, and that would go behind this guy. That's your pressure regulator spool assembly, so the big pipe plug. And then the small pipe plug behind it, that's your bypass. So, but this is the one that regulates pressure. So you want to shim that one if need be. Now, if you have a stupid low pressure, before you start shimming things, you really need to tear it down and look into it and see what you actually have going on, because chances are you have bigger problems than just shimming a valve spring. So, okay, real quick, we're going to come back to this for a second. I managed to dig up, because I wanted to just be a little bit more certain about what was going on here. I managed to dig up a lower pressure 0 to 600 psi gauge that actually has a 150 psi mark on it. And so you can actually more easily see what you got. So I'm gonna, yeah, you can see it. So starting off in underdrive, we are right at about 140 psi right there. Pressure drop, and right at about 140 psi there. So and like I say, that's under speed, so I dare say we're good. I might throw one shim in there just to bump it up a little bit, just to be damn sure that we're within spec, but I am perfectly happy with that. I think we're pretty well kosher. And part of that could be explained by the fact that that new spring that I put in for some reason was slightly shorter. Why, I don't know, although it is stronger than the old spring. But I'm gonna put a little shim in there and bump that pressure up, and well, just give me a minute here. I'll go ahead and do it and show you. Okay, so these are what your shims look like. They just look like a little flat washer. They send you 4 of them in the overhaul kit. I put 2 of them in that should give you, in theory, 10 psi. So that should have brought us right up to 150. So let's see what we got now. $150 on the money. So, with that being said, now I think we're good. I'm glad I found that other gauge, because 150 is a lot better than 140, and to tell you the truth, I might actually throw one more in there. Well, decisions. Yeah, I'm gonna throw one more in there just to be safe. Okay, I threw one more shim in there. That got me right up to 155. I'm gonna stop there. Because we're slightly under speed, you might get a little bit more out of that when it's actually in the tractor running at operating speed. But if at all possible, you definitely want to do this outside of the tractor, because like I say, when you're in the tractor and you got to get this plug out, you literally have like this much room to get. You can get one hand up in there basically, because you can't really reach like this per se. You almost had to come up from the bottom, although I think it is probably a little easier on a double aught or a 50 series, just because of the way the dash is shaped. On a 55 series, you almost have to go up from the bottom because there's so much shit in the way. But once you get that plug out, then you got this little stack of shims that you got to try to hold in place and get everything shoved back up in there. It's just a whole lot easier outside of the tractor. So yeah. But I think we're good to go. I'm perfectly satisfied with those pressures. It gives you about a 50 psi pressure drop in between shifts, which is pretty well normal. And I mean, it runs quiet. It's been sitting here all night with oil in it, and there's no leaks. So I think we're good. So this time, that's it for this one. We'll catch you guys on the next one.